Om Shanti, how are you? It's a very important topic. So we are going to discuss about the stampede in Tirumala temple that killed around 6 people as of now. So it may increase, and around 40 people are admitted in the hospital due to overcrowd while distributing tickets. So people were running on each other's body. So people faced a terrible death due to stampede and breathlessness. So now the question usually raised by atheists is, what's your God doing? Because they have come to get the darshan of your God, be it Venkatesh or Allah, because even in Mecca, 1,300 people died recently due to overheat. So, how can you say there is God when people who are coming to have the sight of God gets killed? So, does it not prove that there is no God? Even I was an atheist before, so even I used to ask such questions when some tragic incident happened in a pilgrimage place like Shabrimala, Mecca, Amarnath. So, does it conclude that God doesn't exist? Of course, it concludes that God doesn't help, but it doesn't mean God doesn't exist. So, this is the most famous festival in Tirumala, which is called Vaikuntha Ekadashi. So it is believed that, it is also called Vaikuntha Dwara function because it's the opening of the door to heaven. So people want to have a glimpse of Venkateshwara as soon as the door is open. That's why all this humbug is all about. So people in all Venkateshwara temples across India, they stay awake full night before the day of Ekadashi, so that when they open the door called Parampada Vasal, Parampada Dwara, so they open it around 4, anywhere between 3 to 5 a.m. in the morning, early morning. So for that they will be waiting throughout night in front of the door, eagerly to have the darshan of their beloved God. So this is a very famous incident, and also people observe fast on that day. So it is believed those who don't sleep a day before Vaikuntha Ekadashi and also have a darshan of Venkateshwara, as soon as the Vaikuntha Dwara opens, they are sure to go to heaven. So that's the main reason why people are flocking towards Venkateshwara temple on this particular day. And also it is believed those who leave their bodies, that is those who die on the day of Vaikuntha Ekadashi, are sure to go to heaven. But is it so easy to go to heaven just by having a glimpse of Venkateshwara on the day of Ekadashi, or by just sacrificing one day's sleep? Is it that easy to go to heaven? And those who observe these rituals of any religion, maybe people believe if they do prayers 5 times a day, go to Mecca once at least, they'll be going to heaven. So Muslims have this belief system. Do you think that's so easy? Do they actually know where heaven exists? First of all, because if you are in a bus, when the conductor asks you to take a ticket, when you have no idea where to go, what will conductor say? Are you drunk? Get on the bus. Likewise, you want to go to a place where you have no idea about. You just know the name. You don't know where it is, how to go there. What's the prerequisite for that? Even to have the darshan in the temple, you need to get a ticket, which proved risky now. So, do you think getting ticket to heaven is going to be any easier than this? So, for that, you need to know, you need to have a clear idea of what or where heaven is, first of all. Then you have to know what I should do to get into heaven. So, if you want to get into a medical college, you need to score good marks in NEET. Only then you will be able to get into the medical college, right? You know how difficult it is to get a medical seat. But heaven, do you think that's going to be any easier than getting into medical seat? That's definitely going to be tough. It's not as easy as just sacrificing one night's sleep, because people nowadays don't sleep at all due to their addiction to mobile phones. So does it mean they are all going to heaven? So they need to have clear idea about everything. Whatever you do in Bhakti Marg is just a memoir of what happened in real once. So in order to understand everything clearly about heaven and the prerequisite to enter heaven, you need to understand this 5,000 year time cycle. So the first half of this time cycle called Kalpa was heaven, and the second half is hell. The same world where we live in was in the beginning heaven, and now it has become hell. So this tragedy incident in Tirumala itself proves that we are in hell. And moreover, needless to say about the innumerable amount of rape, flight accidents, natural calamities, that's become a daily news nowadays. So people are so unsure about what's going to happen next. They are living in fear. So we are in hell already. We just don't know that. We haven't realized that. So to make us realize that, somebody has to say how heaven is, so that you can compare to that. Then you will realize that you are indeed in hell. How this world was in the beginning, how the world has become now. If you know the difference between the two, then you can be sure that we are living in nothing but hell. So God says, God creates heaven, not hell. We convert heaven into hell. So while we were living in heaven, yes, I said it right. We were the same ones who were the inhabitants of heaven in the beginning. After taking several rebirths, when we start entering hell, that is after the completion of first 2500 years, only then we start committing sins. Till then we did not commit any sin, because we had no idea of what lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego are. Because these 5 vices are collectively called Ravan or Maya or Satan in several religions. So the heaven was absolutely free from these 5 vices. How is it possible? Because they were fully soul conscious. Soul, it is the soul that shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, which is why Hindus apply tilak here. So it is that soul that sees through the eyes, speaks through the mouth, listens through the ear, and performs all actions using this body. The body gets perished after some time, whereas the soul doesn't. It is eternal. But in heaven, the soul was pure. It was so pure that although people living there were so beautiful and divine, and also the palaces they were living were built out of golden bricks, they did not have attachment or lust towards anything or anybody. How is it possible? Since they were always soul conscious and interact with each other by considering each other as souls, they were constantly blissful and peaceful because that is the true nature of the soul. Since they were constantly happy, they find no reason to seek happiness from outside. That's the reason they did not get addicted to anything, including lust. But after 2500 years, the soul loses its concentration power gradually, that it gets distracted from by the external attractions. So it can no longer concentrate on the soul. So it can no longer derive happiness from the soul. So it has to depend on the external things to derive happiness and peace. Obviously, the external things are not going to last forever. They are not going to be constant. They are going to be changing, be it human or anything. So, obviously, we get deceived when we depend on the external things for happiness and peace. So we get intoxicated by external attractions, and the greater attraction is nothing but lust. So people have become so addicted to lust, which is why in Srimad Bhagavad Gita it is mentioned in 3 chapters that lust is the greatest enemy. We need to conquer it because we were already the conquerors of lust naturally in heaven, but it is in hell when we become body conscious, because due to the lack of the concentration power we can no longer concentrate on the soul, and we start deriving pleasure from outside through our senses, thereby becoming addicted to the sensual pleasures. So we become body conscious. So the more and more we become body conscious, the more and more we get addicted to these 5 vices and sensual pleasures, which actually had a negative impact on our thinking power and the power to taking decisions. So we can no longer differentiate between right and wrong. Thereby we start committing sins under the influence of these 5 vices. So by the time we reach a threshold of committing sins, that we start getting punished for that, and that's the reason we slowly lose our beauty, health, wealth, and everything. So we start experiencing conflict between relationships, conflict between nations, and several natural calamities and diseases that cause nothing but sorrow and pain. So God in the end comes from his supreme abode to the earth. He enters an old man's body. He doesn't take birth like us through a mother's womb. That's why he doesn't have a body on his own, which is why God Shiva is worshipped in the form of point of light, which is in the form of lingam, which is nothing but a light form. But he is as tiny as the soul is, because he is also a soul, which is why he is called the Supreme Soul. So God says, you are also a soul, I am also a soul. You are also imperishable, I am also imperishable. The only difference is you entered heaven and enjoyed the richness and happiness of heaven, and you entered hell and started experiencing sorrow and pain in hell, while God stays away from enjoying the happiness of heaven and the sorrow of hell, which is also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that I stay away from both pleasure and pain. But unfortunately, it is God Shiva who gives this knowledge, not Sri Krishna. It is by taking this knowledge, one of us will become Sri Krishna and become the king of heaven, the first king of heaven. That's the reason they celebrate in Vaikuntha Ekadashi the Vaikuntha Dwara Kolnika function, that is the opening ceremony of heaven. So, in fact, this world was heaven in the beginning. Now we come to know about it. And we were as pure as God Shiva himself. That's why people get confused who God is, whether it's Sri Krishna or God Shiva. Because he's equal in everything to God Shiva, as long as he is in the body of Sri Krishna, because he is human. So after leaving that body, he will have to undergo rebirth. So obviously his power will then be reduced. So he gradually loses his power, and also he enters hell along with other residents of heaven, whom we call as deities because of the divine nature they possess. When they enter hell, they start committing sins, they accumulate devilish characters, and their divine characters get reduced. Gradually, they lose it all. In the end, God Shiva enters an old man's body and he names him Brahma, and through Brahma's mouth, he gives this knowledge on how to claim the inheritance of heaven again, because it is our inheritance from our spiritual father, God Shiva. Yes, he is the father of all souls. So, this is how one can enter heaven. How? By considering ourselves to be souls and to remember God as a point of light that shines like a tiny star in the golden red colored light world. As much as you remember God as a point of light lovingly as your own Father, that your sins get burnt gradually. So, if you make full effort, you will be able to wipe out 100% of all your sins that you have been accumulating over the past 2500 years. If you succeed in that, you are sure to become Sri Krishna, the first king of heaven. You can become that. Anybody can become that. All you need to do is to have soul consciousness all the time and to remember God as a point of light all the time. Of course, it's easy. What's difficult is paying attention that our mind doesn't slip away from the remembrance of God. That's where the real challenge lies. So you have to keep your intellect on God all the time, that it always remembers God as a point of light. If you can succeed in that, you will find yourself no longer getting attracted to the external attractions of the world. And you will gradually start experiencing the peacefulness and blissfulness that you originally experienced in the beginning by becoming fully soul conscious. So it is when you reach that soul conscious, 100% soul conscious stage, the world start getting destroyed, because the same world has to become heaven. So the world destruction is nothing but the renewal of the old world into the new world. So the destruction is bound to happen. So in a way, although it's sorrow and painful that we have lost 6 precious lives on their way to Tirumala temple, but it also indicates that's how the heaven door opens. It is through the destruction of this world. We will see people dying in thousands. We are already seeing it in Palestine, Ukraine, and earthquake that happens everywhere. Tsunami happens everywhere. So we are at the brink of the world destruction. Because God comes just 100 years before the destruction of the world, it's already been 88 years since He has come. Very few days left. All we need to do is to become soul conscious, and we have to clean our mind and intellect from all vicious thoughts like lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. How do you achieve that? By listening to God's knowledge daily, which is called Murli. That's taught in all Brahmakumari's Raja Yoga meditation centers across the globe, absolutely free of cost. So every Brahmakumari center is the door to heaven. But unfortunately, you will hardly find more than 10 people in any Brahmakumari center. So that's the true door to heaven, but nobody wants to go there. Nobody wants to become pure. But if they need to go to Tirumala temple, to Kashi, to Kailash, to Mecca, they flock in millions. They risk their lives for nothing. They don't receive anything from that. So, Sri Krishna was in heaven, not here. He was not God. To prove this fact, if you have this habit of watching the Bhakti episodes, you will always find Asuras doing intense tapasya by remembering either God Shiva or Lord Brahma, not Vishnu. Why? Because it is only God Shiva or Brahma that are capable of granting blessings. Only God can bless you. If Vishnu is not even able to bless you, how can He be called God? There is another story in the scripture where Vishnu and Brahma had this argument about who is best among them. So they decided to ask this to God Shiva. God Shiva takes the form of a huge ball of fire. And he says, whoever finds my head and toe first will be the highest. So Brahma, he takes his Vahan swan and he starts to fly to see the head of God Shiva. While Lord Vishnu, he takes the avatar of a pig and start digging the earth to find the feet of God Shiva, but none of them succeeds. So they realize that it is God Shiva who is the highest on high. But the question is not about that. Who is high among these two, Brahma or Vishnu? So God Shiva is God, so everybody knows that. But who is higher among these two, Vishnu and Brahma? So, as I mentioned earlier, in all scriptures, they do tapasya on either Brahma or Shiva, never on Vishnu, which says Brahma is higher. Nonetheless, Brahma is not God. Who is Brahma then? So the God Shiva, the only God, who is also called Allah by Muslims, Heavenly Godfather by Christians, and the same God is called God Shiva by Hindus. God is just one for all religions. He enters an old man's body and he names him Brahma. So that's the reason among Hindu deities it is only Brahma who has the white beard and the old look. Others look so young without having mustache and beard, because in heaven nobody will have beard. It won't grow, beard and mustache. It grows just to spoil the beauty of you. Because you have become addicted to lust, in order to save you, your beauty is taken away from you. So the very fact that Brahma has beard, it proves that Brahma comes in the end. So, and God Shiva also enters his body and gives this knowledge. Because people do not know who real God is, they think Krishna will reincarnate as Kalki Avatar, and Christians believe in the second coming of Jesus. But the time of Jesus and Sri Krishna has already passed. Of course, they will be taking rebirth. They can't escape. They can't go back to where they came from. That is the supreme abode. Everybody, including Sri Krishna, has to take rebirth. The reason I mentioned Sri Krishna is because he is the number one purest soul that has ever taken birth as human. Human soul, obviously. He is not God. But it has the highest divine quality. That's why we call him Purushottam. That is the highest among humans. So, he is worthy of worship because he is pure. But when he becomes impure by falling into lust, he started worshipping God Shiva by building the temple to him called Somnath Temple in Gujarat. That is the first ever temple built throughout the world for anyone. So they built to the real God, God Shiva, out of gold, diamond and everything. It is to loot the richness of Somnath Temple. Muhammad Ghazni, he waged war 17 times. He came to India just to steal the richness of the temple. So that's actually hell. Even in hell, if they were so rich, imagine how rich they would be in heaven. They will be living in palaces made of golden bricks. They were so beautiful. So in order to go there, you have to become like them. They don't know what lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego is. They are as pure as a newborn baby throughout their lifetime. So how is it possible? By staying soul conscious. When did they become soul conscious? In the end of Kali Yuga, when God comes and teaches them and makes them into soul conscious being, which is happening now in all Brahma Kumaris Raj Yoga meditation centers. But we don't have the power. We lose power by falling into the vices. So we can accumulate power by considering ourselves to be the soul and by remembering God as a point of light as much as possible. So this is the only way to enter heaven. Not by visiting any temple or mosque or any pilgrimage places. Because you see deaths, more and more deaths in pilgrimage places now than ever. You will see more in the future. You may even have to witness people or the natural calamities washing away your favorite pilgrimage places. Already Mecca is in flood. So it reflects the end of the Bhakti Marg. Now it's the time for Gyan Marg, that is the path of knowledge. Only God has this knowledge about this 5000 year time cycle. In scriptures, they have elongated the lifespan of this time cycle to be billions of years, which is impossible. It's just 5,000 years old, and now we have reached the end of one kalpa. We are just going to enter heaven. All we need to do is to have our third eye open all the time. What is the third eye? It is the eye of knowledge that we are the souls, not this body. You have to be conscious of this all the time when you interact with anybody, so that you don't get attracted to each other, you don't have hatred towards each other. You will have the soul conscious love, which means you want every soul to enter heaven, because every soul is the son of God Shiva. So everybody is a brother to us. That's the soul conscious love. So in order to save them, we have to constantly remember God as a point of light, and we have to see each other as souls and give this knowledge to as much as possible. So if they are unable to take this knowledge, at least give them the power, so that sooner or later they will be able to understand this knowledge, because they have nowhere else to go. God is one, and his shop is just one, that is the Brahmakumari centers. And the essence of this knowledge is so simple. Just consider yourself to be the soul and remember God as a point of light as much as possible. That's it. And stay away from sensual pleasures, lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. So by remembering God, it is possible. By listening to the teachings of God directly, you gradually transform yourself into a divine being. So that knowledge called Murli is available absolutely free of cost in all Brahmakumaris Rajyog meditation centers. So please visit the nearest Brahmakumari center as soon as possible. You can Google for the nearest address. It is available across the globe. If it is not possible for any reason, no problem. You can find the divine teachings, direct teachings of God called Murli in all languages. Just Google it. Just Google Brahmakumaris Murli. In any language, you will definitely find it. So this is the basic knowledge you need to know to understand Murli. That is, it was heaven, it is hell, it is going to be converted to heaven. For that we have to transform ourselves into divine being by becoming soul conscious, by imbibing divine qualities, by reading Murli daily. So this is so easy. God has made it so easy. God has saved us from wandering from door to door, temple to temple, state to state, country to country, in search of God. You will never find it. He himself comes and gives his introduction. You don't have to wander anymore. Just be where you are. Just consider yourself to be the soul, and always remember God as a point of light. No matter what you do, you can do your daily routine, but by being in remembrance of God, you will be able to purify yourself and to reach heaven. It's that simple. And to the question, how can God not protect someone dying in the pilgrimage place? God says, I have nothing to do with the path of devotion. It is humans that created temples, scriptures, everything. You cannot attain me through that. It is also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The one big mistake they did is, instead of God Shiva, they have mentioned the name of Sri Krishna, who is actually the benefactor of Bhagavad Gita. He is not the sermonizer of Gita. It is God Shiva who gives the true knowledge of Gita. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned that I am the seed of the inverted human world tree. Can any sermonizer of Gita give the meaning of this? So this is the inverted tree of the souls, and God is above as the seed. He has the knowledge about this whole tree, and he gives the knowledge about this. Likewise, you can actually give explanation for any religions, only using the direct knowledge of God. See, we become fully body conscious. People always compare body to earth. So what came from earth go back to earth, right? So since we are so body conscious, so obsessed with the pleasures of the body, in Bible it is mentioned God creates the first man Adam from earth, from clay. That is, he is bringing him alive out of body conscious back to soul conscious. That's what it actually means. And also it is mentioned in the end God will bring everybody alive from the graveyard. He has already done it with Adam. If he is doing to do it again, it means the completion of the cycle. So where does it happen? In the beginning and in the end. Both are same. Because this is the confluence stage, you cannot call it as the beginning or the end, but you can say it is the confluence of both beginning and end of two kalpas. So that's where God comes and gives this knowledge to enable us to become Vishnu. So instead of going to temple by taking more effort, time and money, why can't you become the deity yourself? You have the choice whether you are going to continue to be the worshipper or you want to be the worthy of worship soul. If you want to become the worthy of worship soul, God is there to help you. If you want to continue on with worship, sorry guys, the time is going to end for the path of devotion. The path of knowledge has begun. So the first half of the cycle is called the path of knowledge, and the last half is called the path of devotion. So lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego, these five vices are present both in men and women. We all have become addicted to this 10-headed Ravan that is within us. There is no one with 10 heads ever in this planet. In fact, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Quran, Bible, they did not happen as such. They never happened. So they just foretell what's going to happen in the end. So it is what happens within us. So Ravan is an embodiment of lust. So people are so filled with lust now. So God makes them into Ram. Even Ram, according to Ramayana, is lustful. He has attraction towards his wife Sita. That's when both Ram and Sita gets kidnapped. But in Ramayana, they have shown only Sita being kidnapped by Ravan. That's the story. But in reality, both Ram and Sita got kidnapped. Because both got attracted to the golden deer. You got to understand that. So the one who fights and brings Sita back is actually God Shiva. So now they have mentioned that Ram. So it's very deep. I know, I can understand it's very difficult for you to understand if you are the first visitor to our channel. So keep listening to Murli. You will gradually understand everything. Om Shanti. Thanks for watching and happy Vaikunthi Ekadashi. So we don't want any more deaths because anything can happen. No pilgrimage place will be left. Either they will be shattered by humans or by natural calamities. Either way, detach yourself from everything because you are going to go to heaven after leaving this body. So you have to detach yourself from this body also at intellect level. So you don't get attached to your family members, because if you remember them at the time of leaving this body, then you will definitely be taking birth here. If you want to go to the sweet home of souls, you have to constantly remember that and heaven, so that becomes your final thought. That final thought will take you to where your thought was. If you are thinking about somebody in America, as soon as you leave this body, you will be taking birth in America. Whether it's America or Africa or India, Everywhere you go, it's the kingdom of Ravan, which is hell. You will definitely suffer pain. So you need to understand that you have to escape the jail of Ravan. It's the jail of Ravan, prison of Ravan. So it is only in heaven we will be at peace and blissfulness all the time. We have the lifespan of around 150 years without any disease. So only once God comes and gives the ticket to heaven. Please hurry to get this ticket. You will not die in stampede. But if you go there, you know what happened, what's going to happen. So God is not responsible for blasting the churches with bombs, 1300 deaths in Mecca, or the stampede in Tirumala. He has nothing to do with that. So God comes and he gives his introduction. If you remember him all the time, you will become pure and you will enter heaven. You don't have to take any risk. So it's your choice whether you want to come to real heaven or you want to be in hell forever. Because whatever happens in this kalpa of 5000 years, the same thing repeats kalpa after kalpa. To understand it easily, if you have watched this video 5000 years back on this very same time, only then you will be watching it now, and every kalpa at the very same time. So if you have taken this knowledge seriously and enter heaven, you are sure to enter heaven every kalpa. If you ignore this knowledge now, you are sure to ignore it every kalpa, and you will be the greatest loser. Because God is our true Father. He will definitely give you an inheritance based on your love for God. The more you love him, the more you're going to remember him. The more you're going to remember him, the more you become pure. The more you become pure, the higher the status you will claim in heaven. So that's the kingdom. There will be king, queen, subjects, rich subjects, poor subjects, servants, servant of servants, servant of those servants. Everything will be there. So it is the extent to which you become pure determines your status. If you are more pure, you will be getting the higher status. If you are not that pure, you will be getting the lower status. It is in your hands. God wants everybody to become Sri Narayan, but unfortunately not everybody is willing to put that kind of effort. If you put effort, what is the effort? See, in the path of devotion, just think about how much effort we put. We go by walk to Kailash. We go by walk to Mecca. We walk on fire. We torture ourselves by taking fast. Now you don't have to do anything. Just stay pure in the remembrance of God. That's it. You continue with everything you do as usual. Be in home, look after everybody, but stay detached. That's it. You'll be loving and detached. That's how you protect yourself from pain and sorrow. Because you know for sure this world is going to be destroyed, so there is no point in having attachment to those who are going to die anytime soon. So if you don't develop that attachment, then you will not have to suffer when you have to leave them or when they leave you. Om Shanti. Thank you for watching. Happy Vaikuntha Ekadashi.